Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 7 o'clock main news. In tonight's headlines, an exhibition of Kuwaiti products opens its doors to the public under the auspices of His Highness the Emir. His Highness the Crown Prince patronises an honouring ceremony for the most outstanding employees of 2013-2014 at the Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research. Libya's Ministry of Health says that recent violence has killed more than 70 people and injured 114 others. And African leaders agree at the Paris summit on a plan to bring down Boko Haram and combat terrorism. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received this morning at Sif Palace His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah. His Highness the Emir then received the National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al Ghanem. His Highness the Emir later received the Acting Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received at noon today at Sif Palace the Chairman of the Centre for Research and Studies on Kuwait, Dr. Abdullah Yusuf Al Ghanem, along with the Egyptian former Minister of Youth and Chairman of Egypt's Geographic Society, Dr. Muhammad Saifuddin Abu Al-Izz, on the occasion of his visit to the country. An exhibition of Kuwaiti products opened its doors to the public today under the auspices of His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah. On behalf of His Highness the Emir, the event was inaugurated by the Acting Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah, who was briefed on the contents of the exhibition in a tour. The opening ceremony was attended by Sheikhs, Ministers, the Chairman of the Kuwait Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Ali Mohammed Thayan Al Ghanem, and senior state officials. More details in the following report with Salim Al Kindari.
On behalf of His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, the Acting Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah opened Kuwait Industries Exhibition 2014 at Mishraf Fairground. The opening ceremony was attended by Sheikhs, Ministers, the Head of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry Mr. Ali Al Ghanem, Senior State and Prime Minister's Diwan officials.
Today we are participating in both Ministry of Planning and Ministry of Social Affairs. Both of them are important for the industrial sector. In our plan, we need to improve or to increase the industrial sector in our 5 years plan. And also in the social affair and labor, as you know, all business need labor, so they are dealing with the Ministry of Social Affairs and Labor. Our participation to raise actually the importance of the industrial sector and to put it in mind is the future for our country.
Well, Sabah Al Ahmed Center, we support the Kuwaiti inventors, and we have many of Kuwaiti inventors that they have their inventions now ready for the market. We are participating today with 4 inventions that we've done the feasibility study for. They are very useful for the society and could be sold worldwide. And we are using this event to link our inventors with the industrial community in Kuwait.
Objective of the participation is focused in twofold exactly. First of all, introducing EQUIT. And EQUIT, I think, has already been introduced, but just to make sure part of this major community of industry in Kuwait. Secondly, to provide more information how really EQUIT can participate and can help to have more downstream product within Kuwait itself.
Kuwait Industries Union brought together various government and private institutions in order to diversify this year's exhibition, aiming at boosting the economy, facilitating job opportunities, and promoting small and medium industries. Kuwait Industries Union organized this exhibition to showcase the local industries and to help integrate it into the regional and international markets. From Bishar Fairground, this is Salim Kendiri reporting for the English News.
His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received this morning at his Chief Palace Diwan National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al Ghanem. His Highness the Crown Prince then received the Acting Premier and Minister on Foreign Affairs Sheikh Sabah Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah. Later, His Highness the Crown Prince received the Deputy Premier, Minister of Interior and Acting Minister of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs Sheikh Mohammed Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah. His Highness the Crown Prince also received the Deputy Premier and Minister of Defence Sheikh Khalid Al Jarrah Al Sabah. His Highness the Crown Prince then received the Minister of Information and Minister of State for Youth Affairs Sheikh Salman Sabah Al Salim Al Sabah. Finally, His Highness the Crown Prince received the Minister of State for Cabinet Affairs and Acting Minister of Justice Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah Mubarak Al Sabah. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah patronized an honouring ceremony for the most outstanding employees of 2013-2014 at the Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research, or KISA. His Highness the Crown Prince deputized the Minister of Education and Minister of Higher Education Ahmed Abdul Mohsen Limlefi to attend the ceremony that was held at 10 a.m. today at the KISA headquarters. More details in the following report with Hiba Abdul Rahman.
Under the patronage of His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research, or KISR, held a special event dedicated to its most outstanding employees for the year 2013-2014. Minister of Education and Minister of Higher Education Ahmed Limlefi represented His Highness Sheikh Nawaf during the event, saying that His Highness's sponsorship of the event since its inception 5 years ago reflected the leadership's keenness on the development of scientific research.
This is an important occasion for us in Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research. It is the fifth time that we celebrate the achievement of our colleagues in different sciences. We put key performance indicators for our colleagues, and these key performance indicators are very specific on the number of projects they conduct, the number of papers they publish in journal papers or in conferences, the number of training, the media exposure. There is so many different things that we look at when we are evaluating these cases. So we are very happy to award the top 20 in KISR for distinguished people. And we appreciate the support that we receive from His Excellency the Minister and His Highness the Crown Prince, because his support from the first time we conducted this award ceremony till now is a major driver for our colleagues, and we always appreciate his support in this occasion and in many other occasions.
And I am working in the area of the food processing, and especially the how to improve the health in the Kuwaiti population. So I have 3 projects I am handling here. I got one project from KFS, Kuwait Foundation for Advancement of Sciences, and it's about 100,000 KD they gave me for the research.
KISR has always been a beacon of the advancement of scientific research in Kuwait. It also had provided assistance and expertise to numerous projects within sectors such as petroleum, agriculture, renewable energy, infrastructure, and many others. This ceremony, which came in its 5th edition, is an annual tradition done by Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research with the kind patronage of His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, in order to encourage the employees to continue their efforts and achievements in the field of the scientific research. From Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research in Shuwaikh area, this is Zeb Abdurrahman reporting for English News.
During a ceremony held this morning at the Foreign Ministry Diwan, the Acting Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah received the credentials of the newly appointed Ambassador of Swaziland to Kuwait, Melondi Dlamini. The credentials of the newly appointed Ambassador of Iran to Kuwait, Ali Reza Inayati. The credentials presentation ceremony was attended by the Foreign Ministry Under Secretary, Ambassador Khalid Sulaiman Jarallah, the Director of the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister's Office, Ambassador Sheikh Dr. Ahmed Nasser Al-Muhammad Al-Sabah, and the Director of the Protocol Department, Ambassador Tari Ajran Al-Ajran. The Deputy Premier and Minister of Defence, Sheikh Khalid Jarrah Al-Sabah, met today with the Commander of the U.S. Marine Corps Forces Central Command, Lieutenant General Robert Neller, and his accompanying delegation currently visiting the country. During the meeting, they discussed issues of common concern, especially the ones related to the military field and means of boosting them in all domains. The Deputy Premier and Minister of Defence also met with the French Minister of State for Veterans Affairs, Qadir Arif, and his accompanying delegation, along with the Ambassador of France to Kuwait, Christian Nachle. The officials discussed issues of common concern as well as the latest regional and international developments. A pre-event leading up to Thank You My Teacher ceremony was held at the Scientific Centre with the attendance of His Excellency the Minister of State for Youth Affairs, Sheikh Salman Sabah Al-Salim Al-Hamoud Al-Sabah. Thank You My Teacher Festival is an annual event, though for the first time the festival has introduced a pre-event leading up to the Grand Festival. More on this with our correspondent Ghinwa Japuri.
Teaching is a worthy, beautiful career because teachers are the moulders of the future. Teachers hold the ability that can grant children one of the most valuable assets they might ever come across. Further, teachers have the power to affect the lives of children in many ways. Teachers can inspire and basically instill feelings in their students that encourage them to want to become the best.
Actually, today's teachers are doing a great job, and they're doing a lot for the students, especially the new generation of teachers. I'd tell them, go ahead, you're doing it right, and you're nailing it, because we're seeing a lot of students graduating from different colleges in and out of Kuwait. Today we're having a pre-event of the bigger event, which is the honoring of the teachers. Every year, the Teachers Society, they have this event. It's under the patronage of Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed, the Emir, His Highness.
The portraits of some of Kuwait's most prominent figures who have played integral roles in the educational arena are on display at the Scientific Centre, as this year Kuwait remembers and honours some of the past influential figures who helped to shape and develop the educational arena. Teachers are agents of education. Teachers motivate, inspire and encourage. Teachers, in fact, have a huge responsibility because of the influence they can have on children's education. The objective of today's ceremony was to tell them thank you for your efforts. From the Scientific Centre, I'm Ghinwa Japuri reporting to you for the English News.
Thousands of Syrians streamed into the city of Homs for the first time in nearly 2 years after rebels surrendered their strongholds to pro-government forces. Hundreds of rebels surrendered their strongholds in Homs to government forces in exchange for their safe passage to the nearby northern countryside as part of a deal that began last Wednesday. About 2,000 rebels and civilians were badly weakened by the nearly 2-year blockade and heavy bombings of the area. Meanwhile, Syrian government forces continued to pound opposition areas around Damascus. A government official and activist said today that the head of the Syrian Air Defense, Lieutenant General Hussein Ishaq, was killed yesterday as rebels attacked a Syrian air defense base near the town of Mleha. The recently signed intra-Palestinian reconciliation deal is moving closer towards a new unity government in an intensified period of consultations in less than 5 weeks. Senior Hamas leader and member of its Politburo, Musa Abu Marzouk, said his movement handed its list of candidates to Fatah movement. Senior officials said they expect no obstacles. More details with Fatima Abdel Karim from Ramallah.
Recently signed intra-Palestinian reconciliation deal is moving closer towards a new unity government in an intensified period of consultations in less than 5 weeks. Senior Hamas leader and member of its Politburo, Musa Abu Marzouk, said his movement handed its list of candidates to Fatah movement. Senior officials said they expect no obstacles.
I hope when Mr. President will come back, he should find a list of many names, the names who are accepted from many of the groups. It will have the priority to be inside the new government, and of course he will decide the formula of the last names of this cabinet.
The Palestinian president is also expected to end the consultations and announce a new government under his lead before the end of the coming week, declaring his new executive authority members. Abbas, who is under pressures from different world powers, seems determined to hold on to the unity deal despite the threats it has withheld.
President Abbas' declaration that the government will be committed to his own political program means that this government will satisfy the external pressures, and in particular about commitment to the conditions of the quartet. But in fact, this government will continue to be subjected to pressures in the future by the Europeans and also by the Americans, and still the Israeli measurements.
The Palestinians are holding contradictory expectations as they view the new government as a national priority, but fear it will be burdened by the remains of the track of the peace process. If the choices of Palestinians were to be read in binary terms, they should be choosing between the national reconciliation process and the peace process with Israel. However, it seems that this time Palestinians are holding on to both options, bearing internal opposition as well as external pressures. Fatima Abdel Karim, Kuwait TV, Ramallah, Palestine.
The death toll from fighting over the weekend in Libya's eastern city of Benghazi between troops loyal to a rogue general and militias has risen to 70. The health ministry said today that 141 people were also injured in the fighting. Libya's weak central government describes the offensive, which began Friday by General Khalifa Haftar and included air support, as tantamount to a coup. The violence there showed how precarious the government controls remains 3 years after the 2011 civil war that toppled Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. Libya's military banned flights Saturday over Benghazi and said in a statement that it would target any military aircraft flying over the city where the uprising against al-Gaddafi began. In a statement late yesterday, Libya's interim Prime Minister, Parliament Speaker and the head of the military warned Haftar against further pursuing his offensive and threatened the troops cooperating with him. African leaders meeting in Paris have agreed to wage war on Nigeria's Boko Haram militants. French President François Hollande, who hosted the summit in Paris yesterday with the participation of Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan and the leaders of Benin, Cameroon, Niger and Chad, said regional powers had pledged to share intelligence and coordinate action against the militant group. While Cameroon President Paul Biya said they were there to declare war on Boko Haram, Chad's Idriss Déby said it would be total war. Earlier, Hollande called Boko Haram a major threat to the West and to Central Africa and had said that they had links to Al-Qaeda's North African arm and other terrorist organizations. Security forces in Vietnam are on alert as tensions between China and Vietnam is escalating. More in this report by Nadia Ali.
China is sending 5 ships to evacuate Chinese nationals from Vietnam following a wave of anti-Chinese riots. The Chinese government has already evacuated more than 3,000 people. Xinhua news agency said the first ship set sail today, while 16 critically injured Chinese nationals left Vietnam on a chartered flight. 2 Chinese workers have been killed and dozens more injured in unrest over a Chinese oil rig in disputed waters. On Saturday, the Vietnamese government called for an end to the protests. Officials said illegal acts would be stopped as they could damage national stability. However, dissident groups have urged people to rally again in major cities today, and the authorities broke up some anti-China protests in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. In recent days, crowds have set fire to at least 15 foreign-owned factories, including Chinese, Taiwanese, and South Korean businesses in several Vietnamese industrial parks. Correspondents say the attacks appear to have worried authorities, as Hanoi depends heavily on foreign investment for economic growth. However, China has urged authorities to take tougher measures to punish rioters. Xinhua quoted a security chief as saying they are strongly dissatisfied by the Vietnamese side's failure to respond effectively to curb an escalation. The protests have been triggered by China's decision to move its Haiyang Shiyu 981 oil rig into contested waters in the South China Sea. This led to confrontations between Vietnamese and Chinese ships earlier this month as Vietnam sought to block the move. China insists it will continue drilling in the area west of the Paracel Islands, which are controlled by China but also claimed by Vietnam and Taiwan. Nationalist sentiment is currently running very high in Vietnam over the issue. Many of those evacuated are workers employed by Chinese-owned factories or construction projects in Vietnam.
Emergency workers in Serbia are preparing for a flood wave on one of the country's main rivers. Water levels on the river Sava are expected to peak later, threatening the country's biggest power plant. It comes after the worst floods in the Balkans for the decades left at least 20 dead and forced tens of thousands of people to flee their homes. In Bosnia-Herzegovina, landslides have buried houses and disturbed landmines laid during the war in the 1990s. The floods are also affecting Croatia. According to the EU floods directives, flood alerts are still in place in many areas of Serbia and northern Bosnia, but officials fear water flowing from neighbouring Croatia and Bosnia could cause a flood wave on the river Sava. Kuwait Stock Exchange indices advanced today, boosted by positive performance of most blue chips amid reasonable liquidity. The price index added 0.02% to 7,404.89 points. The weighted index rose 0.13% to close at 492.66 points, and the KSX 15 advanced 0.44% to close at 1,199.9 points. The number of transactions came to 4,080, worth around 17 million Kuwaiti dinars, with 186.5 million shares changing hands. Trading volume reached 187.4 million shares, with turnover of about 17 million Kuwaiti dinars. The top gainers were Al Nawadi and Cable, while the most traded stocks were Investors and GFH. For a chance to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. And to recap tonight's news, here are the headlines once again. An exhibition of Kuwaiti products opens its doors to the public under the auspices of His Highness the Emir. His Highness the Crown Prince patronises the honouring ceremony for the most outstanding employees of 2013-2014 at the Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research. Libya's Ministry of Health says the recent violence has killed more than 70 people and injured 114 others. And African leaders agree at the Paris summit on a plan to bring down Boko Haram and combat terrorism. Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.